Our story started in December 2017. My husband had a heart attack in the early hours of the morning, was taken into hospital. 2 days later, he had a stroke that the hospital had missed, that I picked up on when I was with him. And from there, we had a diagnosis of dementia. Basically, our diagnosis was when I asked the doctor why he was not talking properly, not making any sense, totally random remarks and things, the doctor brushed me aside and just went, well, he's got dementia, and left me. And that was it. And from there, I started the fight to find out everything I could to help him and to keep him as well as I could and to keep him at home. There was no hospital support. We never ever got invited to attend a memory clinic or to see any doctors once he was discharged. It was all left to our GP. Fortunately, she was brilliant. From there, I picked up the support of a support worker through Age UK, who was right on the ball, right up to date with everything going on. He introduced me to Tide, which I immediately registered with. He registered me with Age UK. He registered me with the End of Life Pathway people, where we did an advanced statement, and we had regular contact with them for the last 5 years. So basically that's how our journey started. I am writing a book on our story. It is going to be called Just 3 Words, because it was 3 words that gave me the diagnosis, and the fight in me was fired. So during the pandemic, we had a really hard time. We had nothing in, we had no food, we had no bread. My carer visit, I was expecting a carer on the Monday morning to come at 10 o'clock for 3 hours. She phoned at 20 to 10 to say she wouldn't be coming. And then the office actually phoned me at 5 to 10 to say all our care visits would be stopped because I was at home, so we were deemed non-essential. And it was left to me to pick up all the pieces. Again, Age UK stepped in with weekly food parcels, weekly phone calls. Anything I needed, I just had to pick up the phone and they were there. We weren't allowed to be on any priority shopping lists because dementia wasn't on the shielding list. And it only got put on the shielding list in January 20, when it was finishing in March 2020 anyway. So all his day services stopped, so it was up to me to do everything: stimulation, entertainment, washing, dressing, changing, feeding, everything. We had a very, very big decline during lockdown. I was still trying to work, but it became absolutely impossible. If I took time off to attend an appointment with him, I didn't get paid. And it actually got to the stage where I was just being untruthful at work and saying it was an appointment for me, which they couldn't stop. So consequently, I gave up work and we literally lived on attendance allowance, carers allowance, his pension, anything we were handed basically. So yeah, it was a really, really tough time. Yeah. I think during that time was when our relationship changed slightly, because it was constant on me 24/7, and the strain took its toll on me. And I can remember one day he was pushing all my buttons like we did sometimes. And normally I coped with that. On that particular day, I just turned round to him and said, just do me a favour and stop breathing. I can't do this anymore. Broke down, rang a friend who had been a carer for somebody with dementia. She went, you're human. Don't beat yourself up about it. He will have forgotten about it. Get on and do something different. So yeah, that was my down point, and from then on I had to pick myself up and sort of basically make a life for us both that we could both work with. He was having regular TIAs at this time, but again the doctor never saw us. It was just a case of recording it with them that he'd had one. I think unfortunately I worked with St John's Ambulance, so I'm quite au fait with lots of first aid things and medical things, and I knew what was happening. We were put in touch with the Brain Charity as well, and they gave me some really good pointers, like making a daily calendar with pictures, which we tried, but a day was too much for him to cope with. So I used to just put 2 pictures, so it'd have like breakfast, getting dressed. Once we'd have breakfast, that picture went down, getting dressed moved into first place, and then what we were going to do next moved along. When that became impossible, I then used the picture cards so that if he couldn't make himself understood, I could either show him the card and sort of say, are you thirsty, and hold up a cup of tea picture, or I could give him a couple of pictures trying to preempt what he wanted. And usually he could pick out a picture and I would know what it was then. The biggest impact on me was exhaustion. I neglected my own health. I have been told off by the opticians because I'm supposed to have a regular checkup following a tumour removal, and I didn't. His advanced statement was in place, but unfortunately in May last year, he had a massive stroke, one that wiped him within hours. He went from walking around the house on his own, taking himself to the toilet, well, into the bathroom. I won't say he always got to the toilet, but it was always in the bathroom, to being totally immobile, doubly incontinent, thickened drinks, pureed food, and no speech. And that happened, like I say, within just a couple of hours. They came to me, he'd been in hospital 2.5 weeks. I stayed with him, even though it was COVID going on, because I knew I could as his primary carer. And so I fought that battle and I won that battle. And I was by his bedside 24/7. They came to me after 2.5 weeks and said, obviously, he wasn't going to get better this time. And on a Sunday afternoon at 2:30, I was asked what 3 nursing homes would I be willing to accept to put him into. You've just got to name 3. Fortunately, I got my first choice. So he moved there 5 days afterwards. But then literally that was my last contact with him, because he had to isolate for 10 days because he'd been in hospital. He couldn't understand FaceTime, although we tried, it just upset him. So I stopped that. And then I was allowed 2 half-hour visits a week to go and be with him. He was well looked after. I have no qualms about the nursing home he was in. He loved the staff. He was well fed. He was always clean and tidy. It was harder on me, because when you become a carer, especially with somebody with dementia, you lose your friends. They just disappear. You make new friends with people in the same situation as you, but then I'd moved on from them. So loneliness was a very, very big issue for me. We had, after 10 weeks in the nursing home, we had our continuing healthcare assessment. I received it a week later. It had 29 errors in it. It opened with Mrs. Barrow lacks capacity to take part in this meeting. It also stated that Mrs. Barrow has continence issues, which was news to me. In the summary at the end, it actually said, it was thought that Mr. Barrow has had a CVA, which is a stroke, but this has been discounted, even though the primary cause of death on his death certificate is a CVA. When I contacted them about the errors, I was told that's a legal document, no changes can be made. So hence another fight started. And 4 weeks ago, I had an appeal hearing. I have since had full refund of nursing home fees. I have had compensation for stress on me, and I've had a written apology from the clinical commissioning group. Unfortunately, though, that came at the end when I was vulnerable, I was low. That's led to me having to have counselling. So it's been one of the most rewarding times of my life caring for him, but also one of the most difficult that I really, really wouldn't wish on anybody. A few weeks ago, I was out with the dog on a lovely walk, and somebody who knew my husband, I knew her vaguely. I met her, she came up to me and she said, "Why did you do that? You've wasted 5 years of your life being a carer." To which I blew. I stormed off. It was autumn, there were lots of leaves. This man at the end of his drive had just carefully swept all these leaves into a nice pile as I kicked my way through them, stomping and swearing. Obviously, the look on my face told him, don't approach her. I spoke to Ray actually afterwards about it, and we've worked together to get that out of my system. So, yeah, so the future is now. I'm trying to build a life for myself. I'm trying to make new friends. I'm writing a book about our journey. It's called Just 3 Words. And I'm passionate now about getting our story out there, talking at events and webinars and anything I can to make people aware of what your journey could consist of.